Okay, I am starting my live stream. I did indicate that I was going to start at 11 a.m., but some things came up and I wasn't able to, so I'm starting it a bit late. So if you're a person who's expecting a YouTube video to start, it's starting now and I'm going to complete it. Again, this is a continuation of my Belief in God series. I'm just going over, sites and that, video, people talking about it, and basically going over it. I'll be making comments about what I'm seeing, asking questions about, the things that have been stated to have people at least understand the way I look at it and the questions that I have about it. So I'm going to start this one. This is a specific video with a specific religious person. It actually is a Franciscan monk, Catholic Franciscan monk, and he's talking about the reasons he believes in a God and obviously the reasons why he thinks it's something that's reasonable and understandable. So let's start the video.
Our belief in God is not a matter of fact, not a result of verifiable sense data. It's the result of faith.
Okay, so he comes out right off the bat and talking about the baseline explanation or reason that a religious person probably would give with respect to the belief in a God, and he says it's faith. Now, again, faith is not something concrete. It's something along the lines of almost hope, wishfulness, acceptance without proof, type of things you would think about when you think about faith. Somebody says, I believe in that in faith. Well, they say, well, they believe in it just out of the facts of, or just out of facts that are provided for the concepts that have been put in place.
The only fact of the matter, what must guide our inquiry into this question, is that we don't know for certain that there's a God.
Okay, I like that, and it's it's interesting, and I think it's comforting to hear a person of this religious level, like you can't get more religious than a Franciscan monk, talking about the fact that he confirms that you just can't know, you know that there are questions. Oops, oops, I also paused it. Okay, can
God is not a fact. But that doesn't mean that God can't be known to those who have been given the gift of faith.
okay, so that's just a confirmation, and the fact that you can't use a factual kind of explanation for a God, that you actually have to come at it from a faith perspective. And again, I understand this is the way you would expect a religious person to explain this. Now you've seen I actually have had video reviews of Frank Turek, and he actually doesn't utilize that kind of presentation. He goes in aspects of statements that he makes with the assumption and conclusion that they're correct without any of these facts that this Franciscan monk is talking about. He's just concluding that it's correct. And again, this Franciscan monk is saying that okay, no facts potentially could be there, but again, it's a process of faith.
For one, we're privileged with innumerable accounts of those who have witnessed God with their own eyes. Our scriptures testify that for more than a millennia, God spoke to his people through angels, powerful plagues, and direct commands. Witnesses saw the living and true God of Jesus Christ heal the sick and raise the dead.
Okay, he's getting into some aspects of where you can validate. Specifically, personally, you can validate through your own experience with the God. Now, again, that's fine. I have no issue with you saying, hey, I've had a personal relationship, I've had a personal experience with God. For me, though, you can't purport that as validity. You only purport that as something that you say you experienced, but unless you come up with a way for somebody like myself to validate that experience, it's still something that is not, it's not concrete, not valid. There are no facts that can be applied to it to, provide the level of validation that's being expected from somebody like me. So for me, again, to the Christian people, is to say, well, can you provide stuff like that? And can you provide me evidence of it so that way I can say, yes, I can see that you see this and da 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 da. And I come to the point where I can say, yes, I can see from his explanation that I can basically reproduce what that experience was, which I know would be very difficult. And again, he talked about other aspects of, things about history wise and people who've experienced the God, let's say through a Jesus Christ character. But again, those are somewhat stories and they're not somewhat factual based, explanations of what has been seen or what has been perceived and understood.
Who spoke clearly, who heard their prayers and answered them. For many, their testimony is enough to believe.
Okay, so it's coming down the aspect of this personal experience that he's talking about, and the fact that he feels that that's adequate as a level of proof. But again, like I want to interact with the religious people. I want to ask them if someone came to you with a claim, not religious, just came to you with a claim and indicated that it's true, and it could be something that, let's say, they personally experienced, you know. Let's say talking about maybe, let's say somebody, they said they've experienced the interaction with, let's say, a alien being, somebody from outer space. They say they've experienced it, it happened to them, they interacted with these. They can say that. And you could be a person of criticism or at least skepticism about their claim, and then, do you feel that you would be concrete and valid in stating to them, can you provide factual information, factual evidence that I can use that would allow me to at least go through the process of validating your claim through some sort of, let's say point of replication, some point of validation through information that's provided, in a way that gives you the level of comfort. Do you think you'd be able to get that? And it says, would you look at it in the same sort of light that I'm saying that I'm looking at the claim of God? It says, can you provide concrete factual evidence? And that's what I'm looking for. And I'm wondering, you from a religious perspective, would you, require the same kind of proof for something that was given to you as a claim that you can't see concretely that there's validity behind it?
Where did it all come from? We can say that humans adapted from primitive monkeys that evolved from primitive mammals that go back to some primitive goo that ultimately go back to the Big Bang. But what caused the Big Bang? Where did these atoms come from? Who created them? To go back and back and back to infinity just doesn't make sense. There must be a first cause, a first mover of history that is outside of time and space. There must be a reason why there is something rather than nothing. For many, the illogical nature of purely material existence is enough to believe.
Okay, it is absolutely not illogical. As I mentioned in my previous videos, there's all kinds of explanations for how things got to where they got. And he talked about obviously some of the things. He talked about what are perceived from my perspective as evolution, which I'm getting the impression he's probably not someone that takes at face. He talked about the Big Bang, and that aspect of that's something there that's pointed out as things that have occurred. He pointed out the fact that where did it come from? And as I mentioned before, from the scientific perspective, talking to a physicist, they would say we have information that we've acquired that provides us with an understanding that at one point in time, the entire existence, the universe, was basically in a, infinitesimally small point, you know, and that point expanded very rapidly. And we say that's the start. Now, again, the Franciscan monk, he pointed out that, well, where did everything come from? He pointed out the fact, well, where did atoms come from? Well, they came from obviously the expansion event. And the fact is, the expansion it's indicated that it was a massive amount of energy. It's only because of the fact of the compactness of the entirety of the universe into a very small point leads to the understanding, and the mathematics also shows that it can only be energy. And again, with the expansion of the universe from that singular point, talks about the aspect of they know when things would have occurred from the understanding of actually physics. When atoms, when elements, when quarks, all the things that make up, the things that are material based things in our existence, we know where they started from. We know actually how they came about. So we don't have to ask where they came from. We know exactly where they came from. Came from the expansion, from the Big Bang event, where the molecules, the atoms, the elements, everything evolved from that point forward. No, we don't know what came before that, which I mentioned in my previous videos. Physicists are going to say, I don't know. But again, the scientific, way of giving an explanation for that is we don't know. Now, that's not an explanation. That's just a lack of information that it's a lack of information where we don't have a means to make any conclusion of what would happen to be before the Big Bang. We just don't know. We don't have any information at all to tell us that. Now, again, you have stories about potentially alternate universes, alternate. Those things are there, but they're all to some extent hypothetical. There are mathematical models for them. That you've got extensive mathematical models that describe things based on what we understand now and what we can understand about how things may have potentially gotten to where they got to based on modeling and of course the physics behind it in a philosophical or investigative manner. But we don't know. We don't know what came there. We have concepts, we have ideas, but we just don't know. Now again, this particular Franciscan Frank said, yeah, but where did it all come from? And he did kind of elude into the aspect. Well, it had to come from someplace. So where did it come from? The thing is, we don't know. We don't. You can say it came from a god. He says, okay, it came from a god. Understand that's your claim. All we're asking for is, can you provide any kind of factual evidence where we can make that conclusion. Because if we can't make that conclusion, the only conclusion that we can make currently is we don't know. So it's either we don't know or it's a God. Thing is, we don't know. That's concretely understandable. It says we don't know. We have no explanation. God, there's lots of requirements there for the aspect of preventing or providing information that gives us the understanding that that's actually what occurred, and we don't have that. And that's somewhat what the Franciscan monk is alluding to, as I stated.
For many, the boundless desire within us is enough to believe. But of course, there is a final way to know. It is the purest and most simple of explanations. There are some of us that have personally encountered God. Maybe we've witnessed a miracle or heard His voice speak within us. Maybe we felt undeniable comfort in the midst of tragedy, had a life-changing experience with no other explanation than God's loving hand. This is why I believe, truly. Trusting in others, seeking God in philosophy and anthropology makes sense and give greater meaning to what I know. When it comes down to it, the reason I believe is because I have felt His healing presence in my life.
Okay, so that actually is the end of the video, and of course it's starting over again. He just concludes that it's a personal experience for him personally, and he feels that that's also a valid reason for other people to claim. But again, those are things that they don't have, they don't have validity behind them. They're just claims. Excuse me. As again, like I stated in my previous videos with Frank Turek, the claim is made, but if you don't provide any validity behind them, it's just a claim. It's just you indicating that that's something that you're stating for the most part. And again, you can make the claim, but can you validate it? And that's what I'm asking for. So again, you religious people, you apologists, you people of religion, if you can provide that to me, some aspect of what this monk has indicated, that hey, these are personal experiences. Okay, that's fine. Did you record the experience? Do you have any video of the experience? Say, hey, this God showed up in front of you. You got experience? Excuse me, you got video of it? Because that would be great that if you could show this on video. Then we could say we could start with an aspect of saying, okay, yeah, we got this some video, this being that's popped up in front of. If you could have something like that, that would be great. No, we can. A lot of people says, yeah, but you can't provide that because God is immaterial. He doesn't. Again, when I hear the aspect of He's immaterial, He doesn't exist in our time, then how do you validate that He actually exists? There's nothing there from your description, your explanation, that provides the ability to make conclusions of validity. There's nothing there that someone could sit there and say, yes, I can see this, and the result is that. There's nothing like that. These are again just personal feelings for the lack of any other kind of explanation, and to me, it doesn't work for me. That's why I'm asking everybody who believes to provide that information that I need. And I know that's a hard thing to do, but try it out, see what you can do, Leave messages in my comment, about the way you look at it, and I'll read them, and I'll make comments on the things that I read. And don't look at it as me attacking you, just look at me as asking questions. If you make a statement or a claim, I'm probably going to ask questions, and I think that's completely valid. As I said previously, it says, if you had similar issues, is similar types of, experiences, do you feel that you're completely validated for asking questions? I do. I think I'm completely valid in asking questions, and, you know, I'll say, you're the experts. I'm not the experts. I'm not the expert. I understand about religion. Like I said, I grew up in religious kind of environments, so I've been exposed to them, but I'm not an expert. I don't go through and I don't read things at an in-depth level. I don't try to, go through the process of making conclusions based on an interpretation. I was going to say evaluation, but to me, evaluation is a process of going through, information in a very concrete fashion to come to a conclusion. And I don't want to say that that's something that I am thinking of that these are things that occur, and that so I can't come to that myself. So I'm going to leave it there. I've extended this, 3 minute video, 3.5 minute interview, probably to 15 minutes, so I've extended it quite a bit. But again, these are questions. And again, as I've stated before, I'm building up my YouTube channel. If you would like to subscribe to my channel, that would be great. I'm attempting to achieve the 1,000 subscriber mark and also the, I think, minimum 1,000 hour watch time limit of my videos. If I can get that, that would be great. You would help me out a lot, and I would certainly thank you for doing that for me. I'll leave it there. Again, I will thank you very much for listening to my evaluation. Thank you.